Hello and welcome to Outlook. This week we have a new magazine. It talks about the verdict. This is a book by Prannoy. It analyzes the elections that we've had in this country since 52 onwards. But the focus is also naturally the question it throws up on the coming election. With me, I have our executive editor, Satish Padmanabhan, and our sports editor, Kaiser. So, Satish, you are the one who dealt with this book. Tell us a little. First let's start with this point. This is an interesting one, that it's women who are going to decide on, in a big way, the large number of women voters. But 21 million women are missing from the 2019 poll,
Yes.
the list. What does it mean?
It is actually the most shocking finding of the book, that in 2019, after having come so far, 70 years, there are still 21 million women voters are not on the rolls. These are eligible women above 18, Indian citizens, but they don't vote for various reasons. It's sociological, it's like they've just not registered, they have not been allowed to be registered. And 21 million is like, it's a huge number. It's like, as in the interview, Dr. Roy says, it's the entire, electorate of, say, Jharkhand. It can have in UP, and there is a north-south divide in this. It's mostly from the north where they are missing. UP alone apparently has something like 6 to 7, I think, million missing women voters, which actually can mean about 80,000 votes in a constituency.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, so it's a make or break. That is the kind of women who are not just coming out to vote.
Tell me, this book actually deals with a number of elections that we've had in the past. How have they voted so far?
Yeah, so in fact that is very interesting. This book is basically a gold mine of data. It's by Dr. Prannoy and his old friend and colleague, Dorab Sopariwala, the foremost psephologists of India. They have mined data from our first election from 1951-52 till the last. So it's as I said, it's like a lot of data. Women have, I think, where this time should, in turnout, not in numbers, outsmart men in 2019 for the first time ever in India's history, which was, they used to be, in the earlier elections, I think till about the 70s, they used to lag behind by 20%. So they have caught up that much, and this time in 2019, for the first time, their turnout will be more than men's.
That's very, very significant.
Yeah.
In fact.
Yeah. And this is when so many women are still missing.
What else do we have? Since you've gone through the book and you've also, spoke to him, what comes out? What are the issues which have been thrown up?
A few things which we've accepted in the magazine are very interesting. In the book, they categorically prove that EVMs, these electronic voting machines, are absolutely tamper-proof.
Okay.
You can't mess with it. They have gone and studied it thoroughly.
This has been a bit of a,
it has always been a very controversial,
yeah.
Absolutely. But they also say that it's always the losing candidate who complains.
All right.
If you won, they never talk about the EVM being tampered, etc. The other interesting point they bring out is that where we are today is the end of the era of anti-incumbency.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So their analysis is that India has from the 50s, it's seen about 3 phases. From the 50s till about the 70s, it's a honeymoon phase of the voters. We had just won independence and people trusted politicians. They thought they were taking the country ahead, etc. But the next 25 years, they thought that they felt that the deliveries were very poor. The politicians really didn't care for them. They never went to their constituencies. So this is the first phase, as they call it, is a honeymoon phase.
Okay.
The second is this angry phase. So from 72 to I think 2000, every government has been thrown out.
That was the anger.
80% of the governments have been thrown out. That is the angry phase. But now they say that we are in a phase where it's 50-50. Half the governments are thrown out and half are not. But the ones which are thrown out are the ones, I mean, the performance is paramount.
Okay.
So it's perform or perish.
So tell me, I mean, when a government, a party is elected and they form the government, and for the next 5 years, aren't they under any kind of a pressure to perform then? Because if that is what the trend is.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, this puts the onus, I mean, when you say it's the end of anti-incumbency, it may, I mean, the first reference might look like, the candidate can be complacent. Actually, it is the opposite. It as I said, as they pointed, it's 50-50. So the candidate who performs, he gets re-elected. If you falter, you're thrown out.
This may not be part of the book, but since we are talking about the forthcoming election, I think this is also a very important part. The new voters.
Absolutely, yes.
A large number of them, and so far what it shows that more than 272 seats,
yes.
Lok Sabha seats,
yes.
they'll be a deciding factor.
Absolutely.
What would this mean? Because
this is a very, very important, finding, and I think it's left everybody a little baffled as to how to address this. Because the new voter is not a it's not a concentrated constituency.
Absolutely.
In the rural areas, the new voters will have separate issues. In the urban areas, it may be completely different. And various economic strata within a state.
True.
So it's but as they point out, for instance, when women voters are going to be so important, the onus is then on the parties to make programs aimed at them. At the women. So now, if young voters are going to be so important in these elections, I think any political party in its manifesto which has a lot of programs aimed at the youth, they probably would score.
They will have to address.
They'll have to really think hard as to what are the issues before the youth today and how to address them.
Meaning, large number of young people will be the deciding factor in a way. They are about 18 onwards.
Yes.
But for them, say, is it also the prospect of jobs? Because this is something which has always been.
Yes. Traditionally, in the book they point out, traditionally the youth have actually gone with the BJP. Mm-hmm. The BJP has had about a 9 or 10% advantage over the other parties when it comes to the young voters. Okay. But there is an issue here now about, as you pointed, about joblessness, jobs being so. It remains to be seen how they may react. That if the young voter and the young boy or girl has waited for so long to get a job and has not got it, then it really remains to be seen how it
at least in this case, for the new voters, they'll have at least a cushion of 5 years.
Yes.
By the time they get into the job market,
yes.
Because they'll be studying and doing other things. So it is more a question of the optimism on a particular government or the party, that there'll be job creation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is going to be one big issue.
Okay. And what does it talk about? Malpractices are the thing, because every now and then it's such a huge exercise.
Yeah. The book says actually the Election Commission of India is one of the most hardworking and committed institutions, and they really do go to the farthermost places to get the votes, and they claim that after EVMs, I mean with electronic voting machines, the booth capturing, the old ills of our elections are completely out. It's impossible now to really sort of capture a booth and get your guys to vote.
Okay. Farm sector has been we've written on it so much, and we have a large number of people whose livelihood is linked to that agriculture. You think, this is also going to be, since we are discussing
in fact they say in the book that even now 70% of the votes are in the rural areas. Of course, there is a little bit of there is a controversy about this definition of rural and urban itself, but going by what the existing definition, it is, I think, still about 70% is rural. So yes, and I think if you look at the state assembly outcomes of the recent assembly election, which are for Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, I think it was this anger was a lot from the rural areas, about farm districts.
But over the last 10 days or a fortnight, what we've seen is the rising patriotism, nationalism.
Yes.
will this be an overriding factor in a way? I mean, what kind of a role do you think it's going to play?
It definitely will be, I think, and especially if, as you pointed out, if the young voters are going to be, the deciding factor, then how that has, this has gone down with them. That is going to be very, very important.
Kaiser, I come to you in this context because Pakistan has been in focus, because of what has happened here. And one of the casualties of this would be the India-Pakistan cricket, ties. But there are other sports in which we are still inviting them or they are coming here. Could you talk about that, because you've written something on that?
Yeah, the article is about how low-profile sports, they between India and Pakistan, or be it a global event like a World Cup or Asian Championship, they play with each other. I can understand the bilateral cricket series has not happened for many years, but when they play like in South Asian Games or Asian Games, then there's a match between the two countries, they have to play. Similarly in the World Cup cricket or over the past many editions, they have played, and India has always beaten in the World Cup, has a very strong record against Pakistan. But when it comes to recently, if you remember, it's a shooting World Cup happened in Delhi last week, and the two Pakistani shooters were not given visas to come here. And because of that, now International Olympic Committee has withdrawn all, has taken a decision that no global event will be awarded to India if they do not allow all the countries to participate in that, because that's part of the Olympic principle, one of the principles of Olympic Charter. So all countries have to participate. So India is going to lose big time if they don't allow Pakistanis to. India is going to bid for 3 big events, which is there in the article. One is the Olympics, I believe it's 2032, and before that Asian Games and other things they are going to bid. So that will be badly impacted. They might not be allotted to India if India doesn't change its stance.
But when there's such a charged kind of atmosphere, at times I've found that authorities or organizers, they argue that if we bring them, if we invite players from that country, their security becomes an issue. And if, God forbid, something happens, then it becomes such a huge issue, between the two countries where relations are so strained as it is. So you think, is it a good thing to keep it away, or for the dust to, allow the dust to settle down before we go in, or how should it be done?
See, bilateral series, lots of players I have spoken to, like golfer Shiv Kapoor I spoke to. So he very interestingly said that he was talking about the upcoming June 16 World Cup cricket match between India and Pakistan, because in this World Cup all teams will play with each other in a round robin format, unlike previous formats. So he said India should be, all the Indian team should be all the more pumped up to beat Pakistan, taking advantage of this national fervor, whatever. So, I mean, bilateral series, I mean, you can say that you can take a back seat, you can pause bilateral exchanges, but obviously we cannot afford to lose, like in the shooting World Cup held in Delhi.
Right.
There were 2 Olympic quotas for 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. And those quotas were taken away by the International Olympic Committee because the Pakistanis couldn't compete. So that impacted 3 Indian shooters who were participating in that particular event. So now they will have to look for Olympic quotas, meaning Olympic places for 2020 in some other World Cup. There are several World Cups in shooting. So they have to earn that quota, and here it was a huge advantage playing at home.
But explain this a bit. While we have not had a cricketing tie with Pakistan, not invited bilateral, but on other events, players or sportsmen from Pakistan have been coming here.
Yes.
Because there was not so much of a focus on them.
Right.
Which areas would that be?
See, mostly they are hockey team, Pakistani hockey team keeps coming. Late last year they came for the World Cup in Bhubaneswar. They played, they had no issues at all. And before that, golfers have come. Pakistan doesn't have many good golfers, so they don't qualify for the big events that are held in India. That's a different thing. But chess players come. Chess players often don't get visas. But other players like Kabaddi, World Cup was held a few years ago in India. The Pakistanis come and play, and all these low-profile sports, there's not much problem there. Yeah.
So this is something which will still pan out. We'll have to see, how it works, and perhaps there'll be a day when we'll have much more sporting interaction, engagement with them.
Yeah.
Let's hope for
You
that.
cannot forget 2004 when suddenly Vajpayee and General Musharraf, they decided to have the series, that
Absolutely.
landmark series in
Yes.
True.
India's cricket tour to Pakistan.
Yeah.
That was all of a sudden, I think.
Yeah. Even before that, we've had Ziaul Haq.
Yeah, coming
his
for
cricketing
1987
that's right.
World Cup Test match in Jaipur.
True. So anyway, let's see how things pan out, and how relation between the two countries go on. Thank you all for watching this edition of Outlook this week, and please pick up the magazine. It has a lot. Apart from what we discussed, the election analysis from the past and the number of issues that are being thrown up, we also have a section on new age heroines. That's again a very interesting one, and a lot more like sports and other issues that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.